So I'm just gonna tell him to come in.
Just tell him to climb through the window.
Oh, we gonna
I'm
look,
like,
Spider-Man.
I know. Well,
Okay.
wait a minute. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Where you live at? Don't climb through. We don't
I'm
need
in
my
Los
baby on the news. I don't
right.
want to.
Yeah. Please. Look, I don't need any extra problems. You can stay.
Mm-mm.
Doors unlocked. But okay, so this was my question. Because I said it kind of found you. You didn't really find it. Sort of similar to my situation when I started the radio station. I was forced into this. Didn't really ask to be here, but I became successful at doing it. And, with the support of my friends and family, it just has grown even bigger and bigger. Enough about me. Um,
That's
but
the
okay.
most. That's the most she said about herself in forever. So I'll
Yeah,
just
Oh,
sit
really?
here like this
I never say anything about myself. So,
ever.
Oh, okay.
but
Better learn.
Yeah.
yes, both of us shall, because I remember when I emailed you, you was like, "You sure you got the right person?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know I
Yeah. I
got
was
the
like,
right
who are you
person."
looking for? Like me? You don't talk to me.
Yes.
That's
So
you.
okay, so all right. So I saw something on Instagram, one of the few times that I actually did scroll through Instagram, and they were saying let your assets pay for your liabilities. Do you feel that's exactly what you did with the loft in Brooklyn? Do you feel like, you wanted it to be an investment property to make sure it took care of everything that you needed and allowed you to do the things that you really wanted to do?
I don't know because we didn't own, we took a lease out on that. Like, I'd owned other homes that were my personal home. Um, it wasn't, I don't know if it was even that thought through. I think what it was is that, and as I'm listening to you, I feel like the natural gifts that we have when you're doing something that pulls them together, things sort of fall into place.
Right.
And I think with the space for me, it pulled together all the things I was interested in. It was community, it was design,
Mm-hmm.
and so the more that I focused and just did the things that I love, the more things just sort of fell in place and opportunities presented themselves. And it was like when they came, pushing through the fear and just taking them and not passing them or think I'm not ready, it's not time. So I'll do that all day long. Like, oh
Mm-hmm.
no,
Yeah.
you're getting too big, you're getting, it's going to be too much, you're not ready yet, you're supposed to have this much before you can grow. And really the only way you grow is you just take that leap. And so we kind of
Yeah.
took more space and took more space little by little. So I don't think it was really like one of those things where, in New York, spaces this big are expensive and most people couldn't take them on. The only people who would have taken these spaces really were very wealthy people who were just going to have a huge apartments and going to, spread out and just live here and never have anyone over. And I remember seeing the space when I was showing it to people. It was people who were, way out of my price budget because we're talking about a 5,000 square foot plus space. And they're like, oh, we could have the kids here and the table here, and you listen to them plan out their life, and then like never want to share. No one over. They didn't want people. And this is way before COVID. This is just no reason at all. You just
Yeah.
don't. And I was like, no, a space this big in New York, tight spaces here. When you have a big enough space that holds people, that we could all sit 20 people at a dinner table and eat and gather, when we can all be together for these, cook brunch together and do different events together, that's a shareable space. Why are you hoarding that to yourself? I was offended.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
the New Yorker who grew up, tiny little spaces, like, you've got big space. And that's really what I think I saw in the spaces. And I was like, so it was really about that particular asset being shared. It was like, this has to be, people have to have access to this. This is not something you just hoard for yourself. And that's really what it was. It was dinner parties and we gathered people, and then the shoots came, and it was just like, it became this communal property. It doesn't feel like it's mine. It feels like I'm just, I'm the protector of it. I get to decorate it and bring in the beautiful plants and do, right. And then lend it out to people to tell their story in it, which is actually how I met Renee.
Yes.
And so when she was telling that story, when she was making her film, we had met through a mutual friend. She had come in and seen the spaces, was like, I need a space to shoot and tell the story, and told me what she was doing. I was like, come here and do that.
Yeah.
Come over here. So it opened the door for those kind of connections to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
See, now that's amazing. That is amazing. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the plants, and I've been on your IG, I've been
Mm.
on your website. Like, so you're the visionary behind the property, the interior design from top to bottom. That's all you, or do you bring in a team of
No,
experts? Because I know
that's me.
you were in real estate, so you said you helped a lot with the staging and stuff like that.
I've
Uh,
always been a design junkie. I think it says that on my IG. Like, I'm a design junkie. Like
yeah.
the old Domino magazines when they first came out,
Mhm.
stickers where you could save the things in there. I think it's a family thing. My mother, when I was young, we were poor. Like we weren't,
Yeah. Yeah.
working class poor. Like we call that working poor. And my mother was like, being poor is no excuse to have a dirty house or to have a messed up house. She was just adamant about it. And she would do everything herself. We would go to the flea markets on Saturdays. She would buy furniture. When we moved to California, we had a little backyard, and she'd be out there with all the toxic fumes and teaching me how to scrape off the finishes and putting things on there before YouTube. So where she had to where Bob Vila was her big,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know that's right.
right?
I know that's right.
And Bob Vila, and she would be at the library picking up books, and at Home Depot. And she just would do it. She'd refinish our sofas. She learned how to upholster. She had
Oh
taught herself how to do
wow.
everything. And I was her little helper. And my
Impressive.
grandmother was a seamstress. She would make everything for the house. She would make all the curtains. She would, sew everything for the furniture, make covers. So I think it just was one of those things where as an adult, by the time I was on my own, my house was decorated. I was one of the few college kids that was like, I had curtains and a matching scheme.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm living off campus. I need to see the matching scheme. And it was a whole thing. So it's always sort of been my jam. And it's just gotten bigger and bigger. And I've become more of a junkie over the years. And I've sort of honed those skills. So it worked in real estate because it helped move the properties, because people in empty spaces have trouble visualizing their
That's
life
right.
and the layout, right? They look at something. And I realized early on that was one of my gifts, that I could look
Yes.
at a space and see the layout and how
Right.
it should be functional and where to put things. And so just ran with it. So with film, it works really well because you're cheating a scene. You're creating an illusion that you're in a bigger space or a smaller space, and you're
Mm-hmm.
creating these different looks. And that I found my little niche. I was like, oh, that's great. So now I have the space, and I'll decorate it for you, and I'll do this, do all the props, and kind of a little bit different than what some of the other studios were doing, which I
Mm-hmm.
think really worked well for us
It
and
is
made us,
such a vibe. It's
yeah.
such and okay, so I'm a fanatic of HGTV. Have you ever considered having your own show? Especially with all the people that you work with in production and stuff like that. I mean, designing spaces for Manhattan apartments.
I get asked this all the time. My one little glitch is if I could do a podcast on design, I'd be so happy because I'm just chat. I hate being filmed. I hate being on film.
What?
I thought this was a podcast. When you first wrote me, I was like, you want to talk to me? And then I
Yeah.
saw radio, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll say yes. That's going to be a radio interview. That's just going to be
Yeah.
a podcast. I'm not going to be on film.
Mhm.
And so I've been asked that, and I just hate being on film. So when I get over that issue, then maybe there's a TV show down the pike. I mean, I would my HGTV needs a little stirring up. They need a little more diversity.
Yes, they
A
need
little
support.
flavor.
They need a little flavor. And
They
I feel like they're also very conservative in their styling. It's very
Yes.
across this middle. It's New York and California stuff is rarely see it. It's too edgy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And it's mostly couples.
yeah,
I don't want to see that.
they have their demographic. I feel like they have their little thing dialed in. And I like Netflix and some of the other channels are kind of coming out with these edgier design shows. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even what was her name? Jenna Lyons is that her name? Jenna Lyons, the one that was head of J. Crew. She had this kind of funky reality
I
show that
think
came
so.
out
Yeah.
during the
Yeah.
pandemic, which was fashion, but she also did home stuff. And I was like, more interesting storytelling around that. But we
Yeah.
definitely need more interesting storytelling with our views in mind and our aesthetic in mind.
Mhm.
And my issue is always that even when they do sort of put us in places of these shows, there's a sort of washing of our design, and the labeling. I mean, I could go off that for days and talk about
No,
when they
because I
label
see it.
ethnic and
That's real.
global
I
That's
and
see it.
real.
Right?
With the Flip or
Right.
Flop Nashville, I think the guy is a former football player, and I forgot what his wife or ex-wife did. But they have a show together because, like I said, it's mostly couples. Um, I noticed that I don't know if it's a budget thing or what it is, but it's something different on their show that's not to the scale of, let's say, Chip and Joanna Gaines, um, or Tarek and Christina, or who's always in the media.
I'm about to say that the
They
one that
don't
they
hear it.
divorced today, and
Yes,
they
yes.
sound like my life.
Mhm.
I'm trying to tell you. So, okay, so what I'm saying is, I think that we haven't seen the edgier, the funkier, the if you're not looking in Architectural Digest, when do you get a chance to see what is happening, let's say in Manhattan or in Brooklyn or in
Right.
Queens, like when you look at even like places like Astoria, Bushwick, yeah,
Yeah.
Historia, Astoria, Bushwick,
Yeah.
Williamsburg,
Mhm.
Harlem.
Mhm.
Like I could go on and on. Like there's
I know.
areas in New York that are just phenomenal and have so much culture and enrichment and stuff like that. And we don't get to see that, on TV.
No. No. It's very rare. And it's who's to say that that won't play? Who's to say that people in
Right.
Texas
Yeah.
or Louisiana, it's assumption that they're not going to want that look, that it's
Yeah.
so, it's urban, it's from the city, they're in dense populated areas. It's design. When
Yeah.
something is beautiful in that space, you can translate it into your space. And
Mm-hmm.
there are so many things. I mean, we saw a little bit of an uptick over COVID when you had all these IG big designers, in every field we saw it. So for
Yeah.
me, being a design junkie, watching all these like larger, blue checked major interior designers sort of share their Instagram and nod and acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
Black designers and kind of say, oh, look at this person's work, and because it wasn't getting seen. So you've
Right.
seen an uptick. You see CB2 trying to work with people. You see the brands all trying to clamor. Suddenly, they were not
Mhm.
feeling us in
Yeah.
2018,
Yeah.
2019.
It took a
They,
pandemic to come.
But
it
I
took a
think we had to
pandemic.
make a way for ourselves. That's what it is.
Yes. And the big difference, my pet peeve that I've always talked about is it's really only money. You see the bigger designers and I look at their work and it's beautiful and it's elevated. And then like you were saying, then you see the other stuff and go, is it a budget? I'm not seeing the same elevated
Mm-hmm.
quality of work in
Yeah.
what you're showing me. And I was like, it's exactly that. It's just budget. It is not that we are incapable of it. There's some
No.
beautiful, edgy, funky, like
Right.
mind-blowingly good designers. But if you're not seeing them and finding them easily, if they are not front and center the way their white counterparts are, you're not
Mhm.
going to see their work. If they're not given the same budget
Yeah.
if they're not picked for the jobs to do the beautiful
Exactly.
hotels like Kelly Wersler or Sarah Sherman Samuel or Samuel Sherman, I always get the verse wrong. If you're not getting those big jobs, if you're not
Mhm.
getting those big budgets, then we're not going to see that elevated work.